What's going on, everyone? Today I'm going to show you how to replace the upper ball joints on a Dodge Dakota. This is a 2002. Would be the exact same steps from 01 to 04. Should be basically the same steps from 97 to 2000. First, what we need to do is check the ball joints to verify that they're bad. I'm going to show you the proper way to do that. You do not want to jack it up in the center like I have it, because then the A-arms are angled down and it's not riding in the same position that it is going down the road, which is where all the contact points are going to be worn. So wiggle the tire, you'll see that when improperly checked, he's pushing and the wheel's not moving. There's very little, there's no clunking. Now, as you can see, I've jacked it up under the lower A-arm, so the A-arm is more sideways instead of going like this. This is how it will be going down the road, so it's in position properly. I'll shake the wheel, and you can see that my ball joint's basically about ready to fall out. And I just replaced it 2 or 3 years ago, so here we go again. So the first thing we're going to do is remove the wheel, which should be a 3/4 socket. All right, so since we need to have pressure under, it helps to have it, pressure under the lower A-arm. There's not really a spot for the jack, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put a jack just under the rotor here, just as a kind of safety fail safety. All right, so I've removed the cotter pin from the castle nut on the upper ball joint. I just used a side cutter to pinch onto it and shimmy it out. Now I've got a 7/8 socket on the castle nut for the upper ball joint. I'm gonna go ahead and turn it counterclockwise to loosen it. All right, now another reason to have weight on this while you're doing this is because there will be some tension on here, and it should keep the center stud of the ball joint from spinning when you're trying to pull this nut off. If the whole stud is spinning, what you'll have to do is get creative. You might have to come in here with a pry bar kind of above the knuckle here and below the A-arm, and you can pry down to create some pressure. You could also try using a wrench on the nut instead of a socket, and then use a vice grip on the stud to hold it. All right, so now we have to remove these 3 bolts holding the upper ball joint on. Sometimes on the older trucks, if these are still factory, they're actually riveted on, so you'll have to get an air hammer with a chisel bit and bust the head off of the rivet, or you can try to grind the rivet heads off or torch them off and then punch them through. I've already replaced these before, so they're the bolt-on style. You can use a 9/16 or a 14mm deep well for on top, and on the bottom it should be a 16mm wrench. Now when you get to the last bolt, I like to go slow just in case there's any stress or tension here. You don't want anything flying off or falling on you. As you can see, I've pretty much got the knuckle loose here. So I'm going to finish taking the last bolt out, and then the knuckle should kind of drop away from the upper A-arm, and we can use a hammer to hit the stud and drive it out of the knuckle. All right, now the ball joint is off, the knuckle is free. You don't want it to roll back too far. As you can see, the brake line is tightening up a little bit here. You don't want to put too much stress on that, so be mindful of that. What you can do is, obviously it's kind of hard to hit right here because the CV shaft is in the way if you're 4-wheel drive. So to help loosen this up, what you can do is hit the knuckle here and then on the back side where the stud is, and that'll kind of rattle it. If you do that enough and hard enough going around, it should help kind of bust the rust seal between the ball joint and the knuckle and help you tap it out from the bottom a little bit easier. And voila, junk. All right, so I'm using just Master Pro again, because like I said, I've just done these, so there's still warranty. I'm just going to warranty it out. If it's a greasable one like mine, take your grease fitting, thread it in. I'm just going to use pliers because it doesn't have to be anything too tight, but it would probably be a 1/4 inch or a 5/16, something in there. If you wanted to use a socket, just tighten it until you feel it bottom like that. It doesn't have to be too tight. Now we'll go ahead and put it into the knuckle. And remember, this goes on top of the A-arm. So we'll have to push down on that and then start the bottom stud nut so that it doesn't pull out like that. Once we get the bottom nut started, we can put the 3 top ones in.
12 years later.
All right, now, like I said, this goes on top of the A-arm. You'll have to kind of pay attention. As you saw when I took mine apart, the bolts came from the bottom and the nuts were on the top, so the majority of the stud was sticking out up here. And I do have 15-inch wheels with no clearance problems. So, but mine are more offset. So if you've got smaller wheels that are super tight to your ball joint, you might want to pay attention to that. You might have to install it with the bolts facing down, but then make sure that your brake line's not going to catch the bolt. So it's going to be kind of situational. Again, mine, I'm going to come from the bottom. All right, now it doesn't really matter where you bolt these down. As you can see, there's some movement here because whoever does your alignment, because you need to do an alignment after you do ball joints, whoever does your alignment is going to probably have to loosen them up anyways to set the caster and camber and all that. So just cinch them down. Obviously you want them tight to where they're not going to loosen up on you, but like I said, the person doing the alignment should be having to loosen them up, adjust them and tighten them down anyways. So we're going to tighten them up now. And voila. All right, now we're going to tighten the bottom nut. Like I said, these are all the same size sockets because it's the same brand I'm replacing it with. Again, if you're having issues tightening this up, you may have to pull this off and clamp a vice grip onto the stud here while you turn the nut with a wrench. I try to avoid that because you can damage the threads, but you could also try to do the pry bar trick again. The only issue is you don't want to lacerate this rubber boot that you just got, because that holds your grease in, and once that blows out, basically the ball joint's no good anyway. So now this one, I give it a little bit more oomph. I want to say it's supposed to torque to somewhere in the 40 foot-pound range if you're into torquing it. You just get it nice and tight, and then make sure to line up the hole wherever it may be. I know you can't really see it, but there should be a hole in the threaded stud here that you can line up one of these slots in the castle nut and push your cotter pin through. All right, now if it's a greasable ball joint, go ahead, hit it with some grease, go slow. You should see the rubber slowly start to expand, like so. You don't want to go too much though. If you pump it too full, it'll blow out the boot like we talked about earlier. You just want enough to kind of get it out like that. I might give it just a tiny bit more, but you can feel the tension. You don't want to go too much more than that, otherwise it'll blow it out and it won't hold grease anymore. All right, as you can see, we have the cotter pin in. and we're ready to reinstall the wheel. I use the 3/4 socket to reinstall your wheels. Again, I believe the torque spec on these is somewhere between 120 and 100. You'd have to look it up, don't quote me on that. I'm going to torque them to 120, and if your other side is bad, you'll repeat the same steps on the other side, which is what I'm about to do. Same exact steps, just a mirror image. And then once we get the wheel back on, you want to grab it top and bottom like we did before, and just make sure that it's no longer loose. Make sure you didn't get a defective part. And then that's a good way, you know, like mine, the top one was so bad I couldn't even see if the bottom one was bad. So once the top one is now new and tight, we can check and see if the bottom one is junk. So we're gonna repeat the same steps on the other side. If this video helped you out, make sure you hit that like button, subscribe for more videos like this, and check me out on Facebook at Tony the Truck Guy. Thanks for watching.